Is Joey B the MVP? Joe Burrow channeled his inner Kobe Bryant following the Bengals win over the Raiders. Thoughts on Joe? Thoughts on a huge Thursday night showdown against the Ravens? And Jermaine Burton, what is going on with the Bengals rookie? That and more right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien, and welcome in to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern, even when the Bengals play on Thursday night, and weekly on the FanDuel Sports Network. We're brought to you by Garage Beer, and we're proudly part of the Big Play Network. Andrew, let's dive in, because the Bengals, they rolled the Raiders, and we're going to hear from Joe Burrow. We're going to hear from Mike Hilton on Jermaine Burton, which is a must listen to coming up. Joe Burrow channeling his inner Kobe Bryant in just a few minutes. But before that, it's wild. I mean, just wild. You were there on Sunday. I was there on Sunday against the Raiders. And when it was 7-0 and the Raiders go down and score to start that game, did you feel uneasy? I felt some uneasiness. What were you feeling in the stands as the Bengals took the field on offense for the first time?
I mean, I live a life of perpetual anxiety, James. I would say that I don't know what this means, and this may not even answer your question, but for most of that game, seeing the way Burrow was playing, seeing the way that offense was moving along, it wasn't perfect, but that was the most I've experienced a game this season where I was like, they're not going to lose this. Like this doesn't add up if they lose this. I had no like fear or dread of it. It just felt like they had command of it. Not the entire game, again, wasn't perfect, but there was a confidence. I don't know, maybe it was me being in the stadium. It was me being in Paycor, and it was just the crowd was nuts, but it felt different.
All right, it wasn't you.
Okay.
It was Joe Burrow. And that's where I'll start. It's 7-0. Season is on the line. It's a must-win game. And Joe Burrow calmly just makes Max Crosby look like Miles Murphy. Makes Max Crosby look like Joseph Osai. And I'm not being disrespectful to those guys, but Max Crosby is one of the best pass rushers in the league, and he made him look like an average player on 2nd and 1 where he flips it to Chase Brown on a play that no one will remember besides me, and I've talked about it probably on every platform I can because it's such a play that gets lost in the shuffle, but is amazing because it should have been a sack where Max Crosby gets past Amarius Mims, beats him inside, should be a clean sack, and Burrow turns it into a first down. 4th and 3, Burrow turns that into a first down when he's under pressure, finds Tanner Hudson on a key 4th and 3 from the Raiders 20. The Bengals score a touchdown. They roll 41-24. They improve to 4-5, must win. And instead of celebrating, instead of looking at Joe Burrow's stats where he's completing 70.2% of his passes, he has 2,244 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions, a 108.1 passer rating. All of this, Andrew, while coming off of a super serious wrist injury last year. And so he's playing like the MVP. The Bengals don't have an MVP record. We know that, 4-5. But he's playing like the MVP. And what stood out to me is that first drive where he set the tone for the game. And second, his mindset after the game, ahead of another must win on Thursday night against the Ravens, where he channeled his inner Kobe Bryant.
Just how this season has gone, knowing what's ahead of us, knowing what we're going to have to do to get back into this. You know, one win isn't going to make or break our season, so I'm going to strive for perfection every day and every game. So until that happens, what's there to be happy about?
What's there to be happy about, Andrew? What's there to be happy about? I love it. Kobe Bryant is in my background. He's almost always in my background. I love that. I don't know if Joe realized he was doing that in the moment. Regardless, that's very much the Mamba mentality.
I'm going to pat myself on the back here, James. I mean, I just shared with you before we were recording, I unearthed an old tweet from Joe Burrow. What does he say? What does he say, James? Some of my fondest memories of sports growing up were watching Kobe take over games with my dad. Modeled my mentality after him, Joe says. Thanks for that, Kobe. So yeah, he's locked in, obviously. It speaks for itself what he's doing out there on the field. But to go in there for a press conference, it reminds me a lot of really any time that they were in the midst of a run even. Joe didn't take a whole lot of time to celebrate. There were times, don't get me wrong, AFC North opponents, what have you. But it was always like, no, we're focused on the next game. Like, it was just, this is it. And I think there may be some more to it. I don't know what else is going on around the scenes as far as, what he expects out of his offense, what he expects as the team as a whole, maybe to some degree what he expects from coaching personnel standpoint. I don't know, but this is some zone he's in right now. I don't know how it translates Thursday. I'm really nervous about that. But no, I was never nervous against the Las Vegas Raiders at all.
And that's the beauty of having Joe Burrow. And Thursday night's going to be a huge game. We're going to discuss Thursday night a lot on this episode. But before we get to that, I really think he's playing like the MVP. I think there are the two best quarterbacks on the planet right now are playing on short weeks. One is Lamar Jackson. The other is Joe Burrow. And we had to start the show talking about Joe Burrow. I just think he's playing at such a high level. You think about, and I get it, it's the Raiders, right? It's the Raiders. But he doesn't have his starting left tackle. He doesn't have his second receiver, so you can double Jamar Chase the entire time. Jermaine Burton, who we're literally going to talk about in 1 minute, is a huge part of the game plan and is suddenly a scratch. Literally Saturday afternoon at like noon, they've decided to make that decision. And it was the right decision, and we'll get to him in a second. But
no Zach Moss either.
Zach Moss hurt. Eric All gets hurt in the second quarter. Like, all of these things happen, and Joe says, "What's there to be happy about?" After a 41-24 must win, and it's because he knows the standard, and the standard is extremely high. And so, from Joe Burrow, who to me has a real shot at winning the MVP if the Bengals can start to handle business, and that starts with Thursday night against the Ravens, to a guy that Joe Burrow might be relying on Thursday night, Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton is set to play on Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens in what is certainly a must win. Is that the right decision? We will discuss Jermaine Burton and the entire situation coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk Weekly on the FanDuel Sports Network. And Andrew, let's dive into this Jermaine Burton situation, because I reported on Sunday. You knew well before that, because I told you. I did not go public with it until Sunday after he was inactive. But Jermaine Burton, who they built an entire game plan around, the 80th overall pick, a rookie that they're banking on out of Alabama to stretch the field, make plays with T. Higgins out going into that Raiders game. They built this game plan around him. I thought he was going to have a big game. He was a no-call, no-show for that Saturday walkthrough, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware of it. We don't need to dive into the particulars there, but they made Jermaine Burton inactive. They overcome it. They win by 3 scores against the Raiders. And Zach Taylor on Monday saying that Jermaine Burton, the plan is for him to play on Thursday night against the Ravens, and what is a much bigger game. It's one of the most important games of the season. Obviously, it's a divisional game, but it's also, to me, against the best team in the AFC North right now. Doesn't mean the Bengals can't get there, but right now, for my money, the Ravens are the best team in the AFC North. Let's start there before we hear from Mike Hilton. Is that the right decision? Do you think the Bengals should play Jermaine Burton on Thursday night?
That's a very loaded question. Can he prove within this short window of time some semblance of, I don't know, remorse? More importantly, can he prove that he's actually making an effort to make the right changes that this coaching staff, that his teammates expect out of him? I mentioned that during the game, I was never worried against the Raiders. One particular I can pinpoint where I was, it was when the Raiders were running out of the tunnel at Paycor Stadium. The kickoff hadn't even happened yet. And I remember sitting there thinking, man, looking at the big screen, I'm seeing Jermaine Burton walking along the sideline in his hoodie. And I'm sitting there thinking, if they lose this game, are we going to sit here and regret that Jermaine Burton, again, at surface level, I understand the decision, but we can regret that he wasn't available for this game because of everything that took place. And I sat there and I was thinking about it and I was like, man, it sucks that it has to come to this, that I'm worried about this. And then I started thinking about it more and I'm like, it sucks that as a fan, or maybe the fan base in general was feeling this way. It also kind of sucks that, one, he couldn't get it together, and two, that it all comes down to what, a 21-year-old with limited NFL experience that maybe would be the reason we would point fingers as to why they would lose. We shouldn't be in that position as a team. We should have the team in a spot in week 9 where that isn't going to make or break this particular game. So it was discouraging going into it. But ultimately, I was on board with the decision, knowing the information that was out there. And I think, yes, I think he could redeem himself. And I think it starts now. This is the biggest opportunity for what they have ahead of them.
I can't believe you didn't say thanks, James, for giving me the info a day
I didn't
early.
want to draw attention to it, James, because I don't want a bunch of DMs now that everyone knows I'm getting info in advance. They know I'm gullible, James. I just said perpetual anxiety. I'm going to be like, what do I do? What do I do? No.
You don't tell them.
I haven't.
That's what you don't do. Look, I think the Jermaine Burton situation, it's unfortunate because that was literally the Burton breakout game. And it would have happened. I have no doubt it would have happened. And he dropped the ball big time. And so is it the right decision to play him or not? Well, it depends. How does he react to comments like this? And I really appreciate these comments because, Joe Burrow is trying to be a leader, but he knows his words carry weight. So when he says, oh, well, Jermaine's got to do the little things right, but we think Jermaine can be a really good player, and Zach Taylor is the head coach, and so he's got to balance that too. Mike Hilton, speaking like me, like I would, and you know this. So let's hear from Mike Hilton. I love this. He said this after the game, after they won 41-24, when asked about Jermaine Burton.
When you get to this point in your career, you got to grow up. You know what I mean? You're a grown man. Nobody's going to baby you anymore. We know how talented he is and how much he can help, but he has to grow up and just mature and realize he got to put the team over himself.
I love it, Andrew. I love that because no one is going to baby him. Honestly, it's one of those things where I don't think he was doing anything wrong that caused that, but you got to show up. You got to show up and do your job. It's such a simple thing, and it's not a little thing. It's a very big thing, but it's a simple thing. And showing up for a Saturday walkthrough, you can be, and I don't know what he was doing. I have no idea, right? But you can be hungover. No one's saying that you can't be hungover, a little slow moving, that you can't stay up till 4 a.m. playing video games. You can do whatever you want. You really can. But you got to show up. And so it's simple, but man, oh man, is it a big thing. And so to not do it, to be a no call, no show, no one's going to baby him. And I do think this is either going to go one of two ways. Either Jermaine Burton is going to be accountable and respond the right way, or he's going to get into a shell even more. And it's going to be the opposite. And what I hope is he's like, man, this is not going to be me, and responds the right way because we can see the talent. The coaches can see the talent. And that's something that I really hope hits home. So we'll see if it does. Any other thoughts on Jermaine before we get to Bengals Ravens Thursday Night Football?
Well, one, I have yet to read the handbook for the Enter the Jungle crew, but I didn't realize I could just show up hungover more than I have been. So that's good to know. And also, I'll leave you with this. My first job while trying to get through college, GM working in retail, he gave me 2 rules. You show up when you're supposed to show up to work and have a good attitude. If you do those 2 things, we can work with the rest of it. Now, I don't know about the attitude piece with Jermaine Burton. I'm not there with the team, obviously. But one of those things he wasn't getting right. It's critical. Sure. Everyone should be doing it with anything they do.
No doubt. No doubt about it. We've known each other for a long time. Back to my college days. Guess what? You always got to show up, even if you do some other things not so good. Up next, the Bengals are trying to do plenty of good on Thursday night against the Ravens. Who should they be more concerned about? Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, or the best running back in the NFL? We'll discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I teased that Derrick Henry was the best running back in the NFL, and I'm sure people are instantly pushing back on that with Saquon Barkley or someone else. Derrick Henry already has over 1,000 rushing yards, and has been unstoppable for the Baltimore Ravens. It's just a perfect fit thus far, and it is super scary. And I hate it, especially with BJ Hill nicked up right now. And it's just like, oh, you got to go to Baltimore on a short week. And so, Andrew, which player are you more worried about, concerned about going into Thursday night? Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, or for my money, the best running back in the NFL right now, Derrick Henry?
All I can tell you is that they more or less took Derrick Henry out of the game about as much as you can the last time they played them. You know, you take out a late big run, and it wasn't very impressive stat-wise for Derrick Henry. And they hung in there with them. Defense wasn't playing like they've been as of late. So you take Derrick Henry out of the game, I think I'm going to take my chances with Lamar Jackson. You take Lamar Jackson out of the game, and you're telling me Derrick Henry's going to play like Derrick Henry on all the other times that we've seen him outside of playing the bank, like that makes me more nervous, I feel like.
Yeah, I think if Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, then it's a cheat code. It's pretty much over, right? Because he's going to be running for big runs and it's going to end it. But I mean, Lamar is he's just insane. And so between the two, I think the easier one to stop is Derrick Henry. So if you're the Bengals, that's where you have to focus. Otherwise, it makes Lamar unstoppable because then he can use Mark Andrews and use Zay Flowers and use all of these guys. So who am I more concerned about? Well, it is Lamar. But Lamar is like got some Thanos inevitable qualities to him where he's just going to be that damn good. And so it's like, all right, well, which one can you take away to a high degree? And Derrick Henry, outside of that last run, which by the way was the game clinching run.
Sure.
It was. And people gloss over that, but hey, he sealed the deal for the Ravens. You can't let that happen. And so I hate both, don't want to see both. It's a cheat code that the NFL let him go there. And by let, I mean, how did no one? I mean, the Ravens tried to trade for him last deadline, and the Titans got cold feet like idiots because they should have. I mean, they were going to fire the coach and completely change things. They should have traded him during the deadline last year. And if the Ravens would have added him then, who knows what happens? But right now, it just looks, it's such a daunting task to deal with both of those guys. And the Browns were able to do it because they have such a great front seven and a bunch of guys that they can throw at them. But it's really, really tough to do. And so if there was an equally afraid, I would be. But of course, I lean quarterback because we're talking about a Lamar Jackson, who I said earlier in the show, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson right now are playing the quarterback position better than anyone else in the league. That might change. Not saying either one's going to win MVP, but as of today, going into this week, that's the case.
I'll take one of them at this point. Like, just don't allow both of them to have a day. Eliminate, get one, and I think we can try to work with it. I'm not saying they're going to win it. I just think that's manageable.
What dark horse player do we think could be the difference, could make the difference for the Bengals in a must-win game against the Ravens on Thursday Night Football? We'll share our answers coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. Let's dive into our dark horse player for Thursday Night Football. It's Bengals, it's Ravens. The Bengals trying to improve to 5-5, get to 500 for the first time this season. The Ravens trying to really end any chance the Bengals have of winning the AFC North this season. What dark horse player, Andrew, do you think could make all of the difference in a must-win primetime matchup on the road in Baltimore for the Bengals?
So I'm going to go defense on this one.
Okay.
I really wanted to go special teams, but then I was going to have to get too specific. I think Evan McPherson could just be like, just clutch game winner, just emerge finally, like from what we've seen. I wouldn't say it's a slump, but hasn't been money Mac the way we've seen him. But I think he'll be fine. I think it's a bit of a bold prediction, let's say, but opportunities there. This could be a bit of a head turner for Chris Jenkins. I could just see him making a key play, something that changes the momentum in the game, something that I'm putting Chris Jenkins out there, putting it out in the world. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I like it. No, I do. I like it. I like Chris Jenkins. I like his mentality, how he carries himself, his mindset. And that's why they drafted him when they did. You know, they spent a top 50 pick on him, a second round pick on him. It's simple. It's in games like this to be a difference maker. And I do think he's growing. I do think he's playing better. And so we'll see if he can do that. I'm going to go with a rookie too. And this one's going to be a little controversial. It's Jermaine Burton.
I knew it was going to be Jermaine Burton with you.
Jermaine Burton is the dark horse. It's not Mike Gesicki or Jamar Chase or T. Higgins if he plays, or Orlando Brown Jr. if he plays. It's not those guys. Come on. It's Jermaine Burton. It's it's the redemption on a short week. They because they worked. Here's what's interesting about this to me. They worked on all these plays for Jermaine, and then they didn't use them. And so in a short week, everything they worked on last week, you can put some of that into the game plan now. And so can that be the curveball? Can that be the off-speed pitch or the fastball, if we're talking about a 60-yarder that throws the Ravens off or keeps the Ravens on their toes, especially if T. Higgins is out there with Jamar Chase? I think he's a dark horse now because he might not be a factor at all. But man, oh man, maybe he is a factor, and maybe he's the game-changing factor where he has 2 catches, but they're the 2 catches that change the game.
I like it. I'm on board. I'm good with that. Okay. Yeah, we'll be watching.
Yeah, we will be watching, and it's going to be quite an interesting game. Obviously, we're going to have you covered here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern, and we have a ton of videos always on CBT. For Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching. Enter the jungle.